Playing the wrong tune in the wrong key. Gig nightmares for you and me. Song changed keys and I wasn't ready. Gig nightmares for you and me. Another key change, oh God, oh no. Gig nightmares for you and me. All right, here we are today. What day is today? I can't even keep track anymore. All right, Odell, how are you doing? This is Gig Nightmares, the show about gig nightmares.
Thanks for having me on, man.
So we've had a few conversations over like the past couple shows doing like the 70s versus 80s show, you telling stories.
A lot of fun shows.
It's like, I want to hear some of your stories, like, you know, from playing with the Trammps, playing with Wallstreet, Macho Man, Exit 9.
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember one of my favorite stories that you guys were opening for, I believe it was the Trammps opening for Parliament Funkadelic. Yeah. And you guys were playing Disco Inferno, but they didn't want you using your smoke machines.
Yes.
So tell me about that story.
Well, that particular time, I actually wasn't with the band at the time, the Trammps, but I heard the nightmare.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it had to be funny as I don't know what. But I met them years later, and they were fun people.
So, but at least with that story, you were telling me that you guys were doing Disco Inferno, and you would have like the smoke machines going.
Yes.
But on that particular tour or that
they
show,
used it. They used that effect too for the mothership.
Yeah. So they didn't want you using your smoke machines also.
Yes. So I'm told they have one of their people cut the hose in the back, and it filled up with smoke in the back and it never made it out to the stage. So that had to be pretty funny.
That's pretty good. So you've been playing with, you were playing with the Trammps from, I believe it was 1982 onward, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up getting connected with those guys?
It was about 30 years total.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I met Earl, and at the time he was going through some transitions. So when he put his version of the Trammps together, I connected with him and started playing the bass. And we had a long ride, played a lot of shows, a lot of different places. It was a good learning curve for me because I had came out of the local kind of New Jersey scene with my own band, with my friends, Exit 9. We were successful in the tri-state area. But the Trammps was a whole different level. They were national. They had Disco Inferno out. You know, they were big. You know, as you know, they won the Grammys a couple of times, and it was just a good learning curve. You know, being with them guys.
So a song like Disco Inferno, and this is something I've wondered about a bunch of different bands. When you have like a bunch of different versions, where there's like the single version, the radio version, and then like an album version or like a 12-inch version that ends up being like 9 or 10 minutes long, like there is for Disco Inferno. Mm-hmm. Do you ever find yourself doing that full version? Or you just do like the shorter version? Yeah,
no, that was pretty much the climax of the show. So you would play it a little longer. Generally, it was always the longer version.
Yeah.
You know, the people like the song so much.
That's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was reading online that when you were playing with Exit 9, you got to open for a few national acts like Kool and the Gang and Patti Labelle,
yes.
Commodores.
Yes.
Do you remember any of those shows, any of those experiences?
I do remember them. There were some disco groups, like a group out of Brooklyn called the Crown Heights Affair. They were really good. We played with them. And Kool and the Gang's kids were called the KGs. Uh-huh. We opened for them before, too. But at that time, in the 70s, there were some really good local bands in Jersey, you know, like the Exit 9, the Bags. You had the Voltage Brothers. They were tremendous, and they all we kind of rotated around the clubs around Central Jersey.
Sure.
Now it's a lot of fun. What our manager used to do for us, she would send us out on the road for 3 weeks Providence, Rhode Island, Schenectady, New York, maybe Rochester. And then that fourth week, she'd bring us down to her club called The Cave in Old Bridge. And The Cave was the happening spot back in the 70s. We had a lot of fun at that place.
I've heard it mentioned a few times.
Yeah, really good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So fast forwarding a little bit to what you're doing now, obviously Discoteks has been pretty much your main thing for the past 8-9 years now.
Yes.
What's been, I guess, with the theme of gig nightmares, what's been the most chaotic gig you've had so far with Discoteks? I mean, like, obviously, like, you have your experiences of, like, sound check.
We have our mishaps and stuff, but it wasn't really no nightmares. I can give you a nightmare from Exit 9. We hit a skunk once in our van up in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So when we got to the hotel where we were staying, the manager wouldn't let us check in because we reeked.
Oh, no.
So we called the club owner, and he came with cases of tomato juice and lemon juice, and he checked us into another motel. So then we took the equipment, because it was in the same van, to the club, and the guy lit a whole bunch of incense around the club. So that night, people would come in and turn right around, so he wouldn't pay us. That was a nightmare.
Oh, man. Let me... Because, like, I wrote down a bunch of these stories just so we would remember them. You were telling me a crazy gig that I couldn't even believe, but you were telling me about Macho Man. You did, like, a flying gig for, like, I believe it was a bunch of nurses?
Oh, yeah, the ANCC convention in Denver.
So was it that you played for, like, 5 minutes?
5 minutes. It said on the contract, performance not to exceed 5 minutes. And they paid us a lot of money to come out. So... that Macho Man, as tributes go, it was really, really good. We do selected dates now on it. You know, some of the guys from the Discoteks as well. It's part of that. And that was fun because it's a really good tribute. You know, I mean, we put a lot of time in it. You see some tribute bands like Bon Jovi or Frontiers, you don't know who they're tributing until they come out and start singing.
Sure.
But with the Village People, it's no guess. It's no guess, and we look just like them. In fact, we did that gig out in Denver, and we was at the airport the next day, and our regular street closed, and they were lined up like 30 deep for autographs. So we said, look, you gotta know that we're not the real group. And they said, we don't care. You guys were great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So doing the Trammps, there's been a few times when there would be like a disco explosion tour sort of thing where you'd be playing with acts like Casey and the Sunshine Band, Village People, Gloria Gaynor, Evelyn, Champagne King,
yes.
Sister Sledge. Do you remember anything memorable from those shows?
Just a lot of fun, and watching different bands, how they do business, because everybody does bit different.
Sure.
I remember being in Bermuda with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. That was a good gig. It's a lot of fun. They were from Philly. Trammps were based out of Philly. So they did business very differently, and nightmares kind of arose from that gig because some of the players from our band knew some of their players. And then they found out what we were getting paid because we always was treated good, with the Trammps.
Sure.
He always treated us good, fair. Some of the groups don't make that much money, let's call it what it is. And they kind of exploded over there, and they had to pay them more money. I heard that they got fired when they got home. But yeah, that's just the way it is.
On the topic of like business, do you find yourself enjoying being a band leader or being more so, with the Trammps, you know, not being the business person per se.
I didn't have to do anything but show up.
Yeah. So what have you usually preferred doing throughout your career?
Well, with this band, the Discoteks, you know, I kind of, you know, run a lot of the stuff. And these guys are so easy to work with. You know, I mean, they give, you know, no problem. You know, we have our special ones that requires a little bit more nurturing.
Happens.
But they're good folks, though, you know, that's the thing. All the people, it's 9 of us. And, you know, you see us on our shows, the 70s, 80s shows. You know, we get along with everybody. And we got to do a good show in Orlando, Florida, just recently with One Republic. And that was fun.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a couple of months back. You know, as the House of Blues.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they were cool too, because I didn't know much about them. I know they had some hits.
That's awesome. Do you ever expect to still be doing this at your age? Because you're 72
72,
now?
yeah. Well, I do enjoy it still. You know, I always kept my day job when I was with the Trammps. You know.
So how did you manage to balance that? Because
I just did. You know, when we would go on, you know, some tours, you know, I would take some vacation time. You know, some weekends we might go out to Vegas from New Jersey. So I would might have to take off a Friday or maybe a Monday, but I made it work. You know, and as a result, I get a pension.
there you go.
So it's good. But
How many musicians can say that?
that's right. And the Trammps, they're still my friends. You know, I love them guys. They're all good people, and they're still working.
So how, as a band leader, how do you go about, you know, anytime you need to hire a new member, how do you personally go about that?
Well, the Discoteks, it's kind of been, we had a core. We had a core for several years now. And when we needed another player, just word of mouth, you know, like, you know, and people that you meet along the way, you know, I mean, we wouldn't steal you from 80s Revolution, but we would be tempted to.
Sure. So I ask because, I don't know, just experiences that I had when I found myself in band leader situations, I found myself wondering, do you ever need to like do like background checks or like vet someone before you bring them into the band?
Well, not really, because if they could play and they can do the job, you know, and they kind of, you know, dot all the I's and cross the T's, you just take them and then you learn them as you go along.
Sure. Well, I mean, I bring it up because like I think it was about 2 years ago now at this point, and every time I tell this story, people are just like, they don't believe it. And I still don't really believe it to my... So I was working with an agency out of Pennsylvania trying to put together like a top 40 party rock sort of cover band. And I did that for about 7 or 8 months before ending up just giving up on that and joining 80s Revolution. I don't regret that decision. But like those 7, 8 months, just trying to get the lineup right was the biggest issue.
Yes.
And at one point around maybe January 2023, we thought we had the lineup. And I mean, I may as well tell the story while I'm on the topic. So we go and do an audition for this booking agent president, and he says, okay, it's a little bit rough, but there's definitely potential here. So this club owner where a lot of like A-list bands play, a club that you've played before that I'm not going to mention. Guy says, hey, we really like you guys. We want you to see what a real agency professional band is like. So I'm going to give you some complimentary rooms to the hotel that's connected. And you can come see one of the top bands playing on Saturday. So I'm like, okay, great. Me, myself, guitar, you know, bass player and drummer, we all carpool down there. And then our singer, he lives in the opposite direction. So he's going to come up and he's going to see the show. So we get there. The singer gets there like 30 minutes, 40 minutes later, whatever. But it's whatever. We're seeing the band. But he's jittery all night. He's acting all strange. He's acting all squirrely. So we keep talking. We keep trying to talk to him, but he's not telling us what's up. So it's whatever. The band plays. We're hanging out at the nightclub that's attached next door. And then we go back to our rooms. You know, myself, the drummer in one room, bass player and the singer in the other room. We wake up, and the singer's gone. And the bass player just says to me, I don't think he's going to be our singer anymore. He's like, what? Well, okay, that's strange. So it's Saturday, now it's Sunday morning. We're supposed to be rehearsing on Sunday. And we call the singer as we're driving back to rehearsal, and he says, yeah, guys, I might be going to prison tomorrow.
Oh,
what?
Goodness.
What do you mean you're going to prison? So, and I hate telling this story because it's just like, why is this my life? Why did this happen? So anyways, he's explaining to us, I think he was like 31 or 32 at the time I knew him, but he said 10 years prior, he was on the internet trying to like view, pornography or whatever. And he just went on some file downloading website, clicks download all, and then the next day or two, the FBI or someone's coming knocking at his door saying, hey, you've downloaded child pornography. You're going to prison.
Wow.
So I guess he was there for 5 or 6 years. Wow. He got out. And he had to keep going to like weekly counseling sessions with like lie detector
and
tests.
register on the sex registry.
Yeah.
Stuff.
So you check the. He was at one of his counseling sessions, and I guess they didn't like some of his answers or whatever. So the week prior to that show, that Saturday or whatever it was, they give him a call and they say, "Sort out your affairs. Be at my office Monday morning." So he's telling us all this, and it's like, wow, I guess our singer's going to prison. Sucks for him.
Wow.
So he ends up not going to prison, but it's like, well, if you Google this guy's name, he's on like the website and everything. Yeah. So it's like, well, that's not good. So that's the story of how I had to fire my sex offender singer.
Well, listen, they're really strict with a lot of things, especially in traveling. We were up in Canada once, way up in Calgary, Edmonton somewhere. And our drummer had a parking ticket from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And customs wouldn't let him in the country. So, so we're up there, and we don't have a drummer now because they detained him. So our guitar player was so talented, he could play drums. So we said, okay, well, you play drums, we just not use a guitar. And about a couple of hours before we were to go on, they released him. So he had to catch a cab from the customs, from the airport, over to the casino where we was.
How far was it?
Probably not far, maybe 10 to 20 miles.
Well, obviously, you guys have to go on stage soon.
What, man, like, I enjoyed talking to you, man. Maybe we could get a part 2.
Sounds good.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Gig Nightmares. Gig Nightmares is an independently produced podcast made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you enjoyed this week's episode, we would appreciate if you left a rating and a review for us. Gig Nightmares.